Till he starts hand talking and knocks it over. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the regular board meeting for Wednesday, January 24th. And with gratitude, I would like to recognize that the CVRD is on the unceded territories of the Quetzin, Malahat, Subasat, Halalt, Penelakut, Staminas, Layaxin, Paucachin, Dididat, and Pachidat nations, whose people have walked gently here for thousands of years. With that, we'll get our meeting underway before we move to approve the agenda. Mr. Robbins, are there any changes to the agenda this afternoon?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. There is just one addition. It's not in front of the board. It's just a last-minute piece of correspondence from FCM looking for a delegate to attend an asset management collaboration workshop that Director Morrison would like to attend. So if I could add that to the agenda so that the board could, perhaps the recommendation would be approve his attendance. There is no cost associated with it from the CVRD. Is being paid for by the organization. So under new business, if we could add that.
Okay, thank you. So we'll add that as NB1. And Ms. Robbins will remind us when we get there because my paper copy is no longer valid, where I would usually make that note. Mr. Robbins, so with that, we'll ask for a motion to approve the agenda as amended. Moved by Directors Wilson and Segal. All those in favor? Any opposed? None opposed. Motion carries. Mr. Robbins.
Thank you. I'm just adoption of the January 10th, 2024 regular board meeting minutes.
If there are no errors or omissions in those meeting minutes, moved by Director Toporowski, seconded by Director Morrison. Any discussion?
Is that the regular board meeting? Sorry.
Of January 10th, yes.
No, it's okay.
Okay, thank you. Call the question. All those in favor? None opposed. Motion carries. Mr. Robbins.
And from business arising from minutes from November 22nd, 2023, there was an error with reference to the specific bylaw number. That was just a typo. We have a recommendation so that the resolution refers to bylaw number 2414 and not 2084.
Looking for that motion. Moved by Director Morrison, seconded by Director Segal. All those in favor? Any opposed? None opposed. Motion carries. Mr. Robbins.
And moving to public input period, which is it's a time for the public an opportunity to comment on an agenda item before the board considers the item. The public input period procedure policy allows for an allotment of 15 minutes, where the speaker is welcome to comment on any item or items on the agenda up to a maximum of 3 minutes. This excludes items that are or have been the subject of a public hearing. The speaker should comment in a polite, calm, and courteous manner using respectful language, civility, and decorum. I'm not aware of anybody online, but there are some people in the gallery.
In the gallery, please go ahead and just press the blue button on the microphone base there just to turn your microphone on. Thank you and welcome. Should be a blue button on the base of the microphone. Is it blue or gray?
It's gray.
Sorry, it's bluey gray from my position. Uh-oh. We have a malfunction. Yeah. There may be a budget supplemental coming forward for improving our boardroom telecommunications.
I have a loud voice.
We just want folks, we're down a whole bank of microphones, it looks like.
Check 1 2. Check. Check 1 2.
So we've lost.
I did throw that one off. I threw it off there.
Oh, there we go. Now we know how that other microphone got broken. All right, let's try it now. Great, thank you.
Where's the foamy? Foamy for your name.
Welcome. Sorry for that.
No problem. Mr. Chair, board members, I'm Jane Kilfay. I live in Cowichan Bay and volunteer with the Cowichan Climate Hub. I'm speaking today to item CR1 EASC report, R1 Zero Carbon Building Regulation Amendment Bylaw number 4543. Thank you, area directors, for your climate leadership in moving this zero carbon building bylaw forward at level EL4 under BC's Zero Carbon Step Code. Eliminating methane gas from new construction as of July 1st will make homes in the Cowichan Valley healthier and safer, especially reducing the health risks to our children and grandchildren from the nitrous oxide and benzene that now leak into the indoor air wherever gas, space, and water heating and cooking is used. In passing this bylaw today, you will join Victoria, Saanich, View Royal, Nanaimo, and North Cowichan here on the island, and communities like Vancouver, North Van, West Van, Burnaby, Nelson, and others on the mainland in reducing greenhouse gas emissions in the built environment across BC. A move that will make a growing positive difference year after year as BC also builds more residential buildings to address the housing crisis. With this bylaw, you are part of a move across the Mid and South Island in particular that gives the construction industry an aligned and up-to-date zero-carbon building standard, something builders have told us they are ready for and that new homeowners are asking for. Homes heated and cooled with efficient electric heat pumps, which protect against both cold weather and increasing extreme summer heat, are also lowering their utilities costs. We are proud and grateful to have a regional district that is also stepping up and helping us do our part as a community to reduce emissions from fossil fuels in what is now an escalating climate emergency. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Don't worry, we'll reset your timer. I see you looking at it, waiting for it to get reset. And go.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair and honored board members. Thank you so much for serving your communities the way you do, and thank you for being brave and courageous in following the lead of North Cowichan in advancing the zero carbon building step code. I think this is a tremendous step forward on behalf of generations yet to come. I realize that we here in the Cowichan Valley, as individuals or as government, are only a drop in the global bucket of action that's needed to combat climate change around the world. But how can we ask others to step forward on behalf of our grandchildren if we're not prepared to step forward ourselves? I was doing some cleaning in my files last week, and I came across some letters that I had written from 2009 when it first came to my attention that people were starting to try and refute the best available science at that time. So it's 25 years I've had my shoulder to this wheel trying to advance sustainability and climate initiatives, and I realize that there's many people here who have also been struggling to make the truth known and to keep people informed as to what the scientists were screaming at us that needed to be done. And I welcome those who are about to put their shoulder to the wheel. And I acknowledge that, and I'm thankful that the shoulders in this room are much broader than the shoulders that individuals like myself and Jane Kilty and other people who are doing what we can on our own, but we don't have nearly the power that decision makers and lawmakers in positions like yourselves do have. So I do want to thank you once again for showing the brave leadership, for taking the steps forward. I don't think that this is the last step that will need to be taken on behalf of future generations, but really, to paraphrase an old proverb, the best time to start pushing for climate action and sustainability was probably 25 years ago, but the second best time to start is right now. So thank you very much, everybody, for wanting to do your part and for advancing these initiatives on behalf of our grandchildren. Thank you very much.
Thanks,
Bye.
David.
I'm not nearly as tall as Mr. Slade. Hello, thank you. My name's Susan Kaufman, and I live in Satlam. I would like to speak to CR1 from the ESC R4 to enable temporary use permits across all electoral areas. TUPs are a big deal, and they can have lasting implications and unintended consequences. When it comes to RVs and tiny homes, from the CVRD website, I will quote, "RVs are not a permitted use in any of the zoning bylaws because RVs do not meet BC Building Code regulations for dwellings." End quote. We have heard the same is true for tiny homes. I am confused by the board moving to enact a temporary use permit for such uses with something that seems to be in contravention of the BC Building Code. I'm also concerned, like we heard this morning and we've heard many times before, about the capacity for staff and the capacity for bylaw enforcement. And I've also would like to draw your attention that this may invoke landlord tenancy issues for the board if you do go ahead with a tenancy. We heard recently of someone who had moved a tiny home onto a property in contravention of the zoning bylaw, and when the owner of the property was served with an order to have it removed, the tenants cited that you cannot move us in the winter. So I would really urge the directors, particularly the new directors, to do your own research on special event temporary use permits because they are different from temporary use permits. Listen to the experience of your tenured directors and talk to your community members. This is a big deal, and it does affect a lot of people. I have a personal experience with this, and 10 years later, I can tell you it still affects my immediate neighborhood, and I would be happy to share my experience with you. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else for public input? Nobody hiding outside the doors? No, we're good. Mr. Robbins, thank you all.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Moving through your agenda, item number 7, 2 pieces of correspondence. The first one being from the Ministry of Tourism, Arts, Culture, and Sports. That's in regards to requests for comments on a proposed name change.
Let's open up the floor to directors. Director Deck.
And the name change is the name change proposal is about a creek in my neighborhood called Coonskin Creek. And when we moved into the neighborhood 10 years ago, as we drove by, I saw the name and I thought, oh my goodness, how could this still be the case that a term like, well, I can hardly say it, like, I have to say it, coon, which is probably the most derogatory, racist, and offensive name that one could call an African Canadian or an African American, could still be used, even though originally it referred to coonskin hats, and so, or raccoon skin hats. So I've often wondered why that name got reduced from raccoon, and I now know, after having done some research, that it's really based on that offensive meaning of the word. So I'm fully in favor of the BC government changing it, and I hope they think about using a name that's a traditional name for a creek in this neighborhood, and have consultation with the Subasad about what that name might be. And because the creek's been there much, much longer than the name. And in fact, the name, I'm older than the name of that creek, so it doesn't have a whole lot of historical value even, so I beseech my fellow directors to endorse what the BC government proposes to do. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll go to Director Toporowski next.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I'm in favor of them rescinding this name, doing a name change. But in reading the letter and seeing who they CC'd it to, they forgot the biggest nation in BC, Cowichan Tribes. They didn't CC Cowichan Tribes, so I don't know if that's something that we should point out to them from here or not, because I think they should have a say in this, because they have every other nation but Cowichan Tribes in there. So that was my only comment on that, the letter. But I know there have been discussions at the Cowichan Tribes table on rescinding names in our local area too as well, street names and whatnot. So again, it's just one of the things that we could all look at and talk together at a table and come up with a new name for all of these things that were okay and acceptable and whatever, not, became the norm for names in history, which is now not so welcoming. Thanks.
Thank you. I believe Mr. Robbins is going to help us with a potential motion, but that the board expressed support for the rescinding of the name. But also, is there any thought on a process that we might support for the renaming? So I'm not sure if the board wants to take a position or just say that we support the removal of that name and let the province move forward of how it may be renamed, or if the board would like to use that motion as an opportunity to give input on how it may be renamed in consultation with local First Nations communities, or something to that effect, to give a more appropriate historical time immemorial name perhaps to the creek. I'm just trying to put something out there for consideration, but Director Deck.
I think what you said says it perfectly, that we should recommend that the government speak to First Nations. I think Subhasit, mind you, we're in 10 nations traveled through and lived through, and so probably it should be put out to all of them. Thank you.
Thank you. So I'm going to take a brief pause, if that's okay, unless I see a director's hand, but just to work with Mr. Robbins on a motion that would be tidy yet effective. So as they would say on Coffee Talk, talk amongst yourselves. Yeah, sorry. Director Morrison, folks, we're back. No more talking amongst yourselves, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm hesitating because it's normally in our process, we're being asked to respond, and it looks like it's totally appropriate if we were to add Cowichan to the list of folks that we think that might be contacted on this. And I know it's not really our place to point the provincial government to where they should go in regards to their process, and I would rely on their process. But I just want to insert the notion that there is the CATSA Historical Society, which is, very well entrenched and knowledgeable of a whole bunch of the history. So I'm reluctant, but I would still like to, test the group as to whether or not this might be an appropriate group to add to the suggested list that the province consult on this. I think we've sort of touched on all the right points so far, and would just like to add that for your consideration.
Yeah, we could just add that as an amendment, perhaps when the motion comes forward. So we're trying to capture without getting too wordy. I'm aware, and perhaps maybe not in the motion specifically, but in the correspondence replying to this correspondence, we could name the nations that are named here as well as the addition of Cowichan tribes. But I think Mr. Robbins has a potential motion that we could pass. But if you want to read it out, we'll see if that satisfies the board.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. That the Cowichan Valley Regional District support the rescinding of the name to the creek that flows southwest into Cowichan Lake, west of Yubo, Cowichan Regional District, as referred to in the letter by the BC Geographical Names Office, and that consideration for renaming be referred to the First Nations within the region.
Director McGonigal.
Thank you very much. And considering that we have implemented DRIPA within the provincial government, I think that would be an avenue to add within there too, contained within the DRIPA legislation of British Columbia. I'm not going to add that.
Okay,
But I feel
Director
that
Deck.
that process is already implemented with the DRIPA legislation, that would be considered on the consultation.
Okay, thank you. Director Deck.
With regards to the CATSA Museum, I know they have lots of settler history there, and I'm wondering if there's enough Indigenous history that would give us a balanced, I think it would be more, I would, from my point of view, rather not hear from the CATSA Museum, because I think it's all, pretty well all settler
So
history.
we're not debating a motion because we have no motion on the floor yet. The motion that Mr. Robbins read out was what we have so far. If that's moved and seconded and put on the floor, then we're welcome to debate maybe future amendments that might come forward, or another motion can come forward from any director. Mr. Robbins has put forward what he thought was suitable. Director Deck. Is that, okay, I'll take Director Duncan, I'll take you as a seconder. So I moved by Director Deck, seconded by Director Duncan. Discussion on the motion or amendments. Director Morrison.
Well, what's your pleasure, Mr. Chair? I would move that not the CATSA Museum, but the CATSA Historical Society be added to, and I don't know how you would word it, but added to the list of referrals for the provincial consideration as an amendment.
Okay, that's been moved and seconded. So we're on the amendment. Director McGonigal.
And I think aside from the CATSA Museum, which does implement a lot of settler history, the CATSA Historical Society does have a plethora of knowledge of not only resource history, but also First Nation history in the west end of the Cowichan, and would be considered as a good avenue for input as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Further discussion on the amendment? Seeing none, I'm going to call the question on the amendment. Those in favor and opposed? Directors Deck, Nicholson, Martman, those opposed? And Stone opposed? So the motion carries. So we're back to the main motion as amended. Any discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the, do you want to speak to the date? Or Director Segal? Yeah, well, we're going to call the question, and that's going to end the item, so.
So I just want to point out, the last line of the letter is that they would appreciate response by December 31st.
That's fine.
So it's okay? Okay.
Okay. Okay, so we're going to call the question on the motion as amended. All those in favor? Any opposed? Director Martman opposed? And Director Deck opposed? Motion, sorry? We voted on the amendment, now we're on the motion as amended. Okay. Including the referral to CATSA. So all those opposed? Director Martman and Director Deck opposed, the motion carries. Okay. All right, off to a hot start. That's me, nobody else. So we have next correspondence from Tris Mandeo, UBCM President, regarding 2024 UBCM Housing Summit, and the recommendation is for direction. I just got to say, recommendations that say for direction or no recommendation at all. Sure. While you're doing that, Mr. Director Wilson.
I'll let the CAO
Okay.
give the policy, and then I'll speak after that, if that's okay, sir.
Okay, yep. Ms. Miles Wilson.
Hi, thank you. Just for a reminder, and because there's some new directors that may not be familiar with the conference and seminars for elected officials policy. So just for context, it says that directors may attend conferences and seminars or workshops that pertain to local government matters without prior board approval if the total cost to attend is under $500. So we've budgeted for two outside of UBCM and FCM and those larger events. But any conference or seminar or workshop with an expected total cost equal to or greater than $500 requires board approval prior to attendance. So in this case, for instance, a $350 registration, and then you think about hotel and travel, that'll push you above, and that's why it has to come back. But for this one in particular, note too that it does have a virtual attendance option. So just for you to know.
Thank you. I've got Director Wilson and then Director Morrison, and then I'll watch for more hands.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. This particular conference I attended last year, and I think Director Morrison did as well. It's probably one of the more important and useful conferences that there are, considering the crisis that we're in at the moment. I'll be supporting this, and I'll also be asking if I can attend again this year. Thank you.
Thank you. Director Morrison.
Yeah, I'm wondering if staff has seen, I've read the material presented to us, but I'm wondering if we've had an opportunity to see the agenda for the event. And I pose the question, I think we should have attendance. I'm glad to hear Director Wilson would be considering going. I just raised the caution that there was very little in the way of regional district electoral area specific content at the event last year. As a member of the executive last year, I kind of made a fair bit of noise about it, and hopefully that they would have more regional district applicable content. So if Ms. Miles Wilson has some more detail, that would be helpful, and I may attend virtually.
I'm sure you're doing what we're doing, which is scrolling through the agenda. Okay, so I did see stuff on short-term rentals. What else? Got anything you can see there that's?
Do you want me just to review it quickly, Mr. Chair?
Yeah, please.
Okay, I'll just do a real quick run through this here. So the first day, they've got a panel of local elected officials to explore the new housing legislation and next steps. They've got a session on Bill 44, small-scale multi-unit housing and proactive planning. They've got a session on affordable housing that afternoon, and then they've got breakout sessions about homelessness encampments and Bill 45 and short-term rentals. And then the next day, they've got a session on housing, immigration, and population growth, housing and local government finance. They've got a legal session, and then they've got breakouts on transit-oriented development under Bill 47 and navigating foundational transformation of the planning framework with limited staff capacity. That's what the agenda looks like.
I've got a speakers list. Director Morrison, is that okay for the moment? Okay, I have Director Duncan, and then Istash, and then Wilson for round two.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, Mayor Staples and I both attended a Zoom meeting yesterday on the small housing changes, and she has indicated that she would like to also attend this conference.
So through to staff, this would be for the electoral area directors. The municipalities send, yeah, so that would be through your municipality. Yeah. Thank you. Director Istash.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to say North Cowichan representatives most likely can't go. We have council meeting the Tuesday, and then I see we have CVRD meeting the next day because it's the 14th, correct?
Yeah, and that's what alternates are for.
Yeah. Just sharing that, the date, just to be mindful of the Wednesday for the board.
Yeah, we had a member of our council miss the council meeting last year to attend the conference as well. Director Wilson, round two.
Yeah, just to reiterate from what Director Morrison said, I believe that last year was the first time they'd held this conference. So the agenda was fairly closed, I think, but this year they've spread it right open. I'm pretty certain last year was the first.
I have a feeling there'll be some hot topics. Well, the topics are on hot issues, so lively discussion, as they say. So I hear that you are looking to go. Other electoral area directors that are asking to be added to the list, I would say raise your hands. So Director McClinton, any others? So this would be to attend the housing conference. Director Abbott? Okay. Okay, so the motion would be that Directors Wilson, McClinton, and Abbott be permitted to attend the UBCM housing. Sorry?
Sorry, I know at our Electoral Service Area Committee, we talked about sending 3 people, so I'll recuse myself.
Well, it's only 3.
No, you're not? Oh.
No,
okay.
that's 3.
Okay.
Yeah, so it was Directors Wilson, McClinton, and Abbott to attend the UBCM housing conference. Moved by Director Morrison, seconded by Director Segal. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? None opposed, motion carries. Mr. Robbins. We're on committee and commission reports.
We certainly are. CR1 is the report and recommendations of the Electoral Area Services Committee meeting of January 17th, 2024. This is for Director Morrison. There are 8 recommendations for the all directors.
Director Morrison.
Thank you. Through you, are we going off the
This
paper
is,
or?
for this one, off the paper is fine.
Ooh, excellent. Glad I asked. Would move, we'll first turn to the board and ask if there's any that anyone would like pulled that ends at R9.
It's for all directors. Any items you wish to pull from the block? Seeing none, Director Morrison, you moving those items?
I would move all of the items that were published in the agenda for.
All directors?
Yeah.
All right, do we have a seconder? Seconded by Director Segal. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? None opposed, motion carries. Director Morrison.
For electoral area directors only, we have our 1, 2, 3, and 4, and I'm just Would anyone like any of those pulled before I move them as a block?
Director Abbott.
In light of what we've heard from public discourse this afternoon, I'd like to respectfully pull R4 for further discussion.
Okay. Move R1, 2, and 3.
Thank you. Seconded by Director Segal. Any discussion on those items? Seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? None opposed, motion carries.
Move R4.
And do we have a seconder for R4? Director Segal. And to Director Abbott.
I wonder if it's opportune or permissible to take this back to the EASC to discuss it a little further. As mentioned, Ms. Kaufman brought up some interesting observations that I'd like to learn more about.
So I would only comment that the comment flagged for me that by allowing temporary use permits does not just permit temporary uses without adjudication through EASC and the board. But Ms. Charolf, I don't know if you can speak to that. This isn't permitting any uses that haven't gone through a proper process, as far as I understand, but. maybe
That's
I'm
correct. So there was a preliminary report that came to committee and was discussed, and staff were, the recommendation that passed was that staff draft amendments for the OCP and guidelines for potential inclusion in our new comprehensive zoning bylaw. And the intent is that we would come back to committee to have further discussion about permissible temporary uses and the guidelines around temporary uses. But it's a very early stage of the process. No direction at this point to forward any bylaws to the board. And it isn't anticipated that there would be some uses where, you could specifically exclude certain things from the possibility of getting a TUP. And yes, just to clarify, the power to issue a TUP rests entirely with the board, so it's the board's discretion to issue it or not. Yeah.
Director Abbott.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, staff. Ms. Charolf, will we also be discussing temporary event permits too? Okay, thank you.
So just for clarity, this is the process, so it will be coming back to ESC for further discussion if this direction were to pass. I have Director Morrison and then Director Nicholson.
Yeah, thank you. We had, I think, a good preliminary discussion at committee before this was advanced to the board. And as Ms. Charolf has made clear, this is early stages, and I think there's maybe not hyper awareness, but certainly awareness amongst the committee that there will be items that are perhaps pinch points in what comes forward, and I think we're all prepared to deal with those when the work product from staff come back in another report. So I think we should proceed with this. It's time. Thank you.
Thank you. Director Nicholson.
Thank you. I concur with Director Morrison, although I will say that I was very disappointed in our conversation at Electoral Area Services Committee that there wasn't more support for a workshop, because I think there's a lot of things that we need to think about, and it's a bit difficult when things come forward in a more formal way. I think it would be helpful because it's a complicated subject.
Thank you. So for today, I'll look to any other speakers on the item. Director Abbott.
I was going to move R4.
It's been moved and seconded already.
Oh, sorry.
It's already on the floor. Any further discussion on R4? Seeing none for electoral area directors only. All those in favor? Any opposed? None opposed. Motion carries.
That concludes my report.
Thank you, Director Morrison. Mr. Robbins.
Moving on to CR2 is the report and recommendations of the Committee of the Whole that was held earlier today, January 24th, 2024. This is for Director McGonigal. The paper copies do not include the third recommendation, which I can, if you're following along on electronic, is R3, and I could read out the third for your information. R3, 1, that the board meeting schedule for the Governance Committee be modified to align with the corporate officer staff report, subject to potential staffing resource implications. 2, that the terms of reference for the Governance Committee be amended to change the reference from Select Committee to Standing Committee. And 3, that the terms of reference for the Governance Committee be amended to change the composition from select appointees to all board directors.
And thank you. I'll turn to Director McGonigal for the first two parts of his report.
The
Director
remaining
McGonigal.
two, thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Mr. Robbins, for taking number 3. I appreciate that. That saves me about 34 words. Your Committee of the Whole report recommends the following from this morning's meeting. R1, that a 3-year transit agreement with Snaminis First Nation to service a new bus stop on the Nanaimo Cowichan Express Transit Route 70, as described in the staff report to the January 2024 Committee of the Whole, be approved. That's January 24th. And that the Cowichan Valley Regional District apply for $50,000 in funding through the Active Communities Grant Program to support increased physical activity opportunities that align with the physical literacy initiative in the region, and also the one that Mr. Robbins read previous to mine. Move those.
Thank you. Those have been moved by Director McGonigal, AKA Chair McGonigal, from this morning's session, seconded by Director Wilson. Any further discussion on those items? Seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? None opposed, motion carries.
That concludes my and Mr. Robbins' report.
Thank you, Chair/Director, Mr. McGonigal. Mr. Robbins.
Depending on the methodology used to count the word count, it's over 60. Just thought I'd point that out.
Mine was shorthand, thank you.
Moving on to Section 11, staff reports. SR1 is a report from Emergency Management Cowichan with regards to replacement of a radio spectrum analyzer. There's a 2-part recommendation for the board.
Thank you, Mr. Robbins. Moved by Director Wilson, seconded by Director Nicholson. Any discussion? It's not the spectrum analyzer that looks so wicked on my stereo. It's a different kind. Go ahead, Director Morrison.
I just had to ask if it's the same kind they use in paranormal investigations.
Probably not the same as that one either. Unless emergency management's now managing paranormal incidents.
Is that a friendly amendment to make
Mr.
that?
Wainwright's got his Ghostbusters outfit on. We can get my composure over here. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? None opposed, motion carries. Mr. Robbins.
SR2 is a report from Emergency Management Cowichan with regards to emergency 911 agreements. There's a 2-part recommendation with respect to agreements with some parties for 911 fire dispatch radio repeater site service.
Thank you. Moved by Director McGonigal, seconded by Director Nicholson. Discussion. Director Morrison, and then Director Bartman.
I've raised this in previous meetings, and I'm just curious if we know anything further in regards to progress on a 911 levy on mobile devices, if staff have anything further to report, or just rely on what we've heard, I think, a few weeks ago.
Merrick is on the virtual meeting.
Perfect. Through to staff? There he is.
Yeah, hi. Through the chair to the director, we've heard rumors that the province will be looking at 911 legislation, but it's in the rumor mill right now. I fully expect it to happen within the next few years, but pretty closed information on that at this time.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next, Director Martman.
Thank you, and thank you, Chair. And through the staff, on page 3, I needed some clarity. I didn't make sense out of the numbers of the percentage breakdown. I think you said you've updated it to reflect the most current numbers, and it says the city at 47%, the CVRD at 44%, and the RDN at 9%. And I looked through to try to match numbers to that, and I couldn't. So I'm wondering if you can help me with that. I'm not sure what the city actually means.
Through the chair to the director, that the city means the city of Nanaimo, and it's possible I have a typo with the percentages there, but within the Central Island 911 partnership, it works out to the city of Nanaimo being the largest percentage based on population, and followed by the CVRD, and then the RDN. The southern portion of the RDN is the 9%.
Through the repeater service area, right? Yeah.
For 911 911 call answering, which is when people call 911, it's the primary call.
Oh,
That's the breakdown.
I guess I was just trying to match that to numbers that we're getting, or the payment numbers, and so I'm taking from that the percentages are close, but the number that we're paying is actually right. Is that correct? The cost sharing?
Believe so. I can double check that and get back to you. The most recent contact, I'll just pull up the staff report here, 1 second. The most recent contract for the Central Island Partnership was the 459,000 for 2024. And then, our portion, CVRD's portion was the 202, which should be, sorry, I believe there's a typo there. It should be 46%. But I'll double check and get back to you.
So we can't really adopt the motion if we're waiting for clarity. So would this be appropriate then to refer back to staff? It's been moved and seconded. No, I know, I'm just trying to get some clarity from staff on what's appropriate, because this is about approving an agreement. If the agreement has errors in numbers, do we need to refer it back to get the right numbers? Or is the agreement correct and just the report is incorrect?
I will need some time to double check that.
Do we want to we only have bylaws left in this meeting, or no, we have a couple of items, so perhaps we just table it and give a few minutes and go through the rest of the business and come back to it. Sorry, I didn't mean to throw you on the spot. If we give you 5 minutes, will you be able to just give us that clarity? Okay, so
that should be enough time for me to figure that out.
Okay, we'll get a motion
To
to
table?
thank you. That's been moved by Director Morrison, seconded, not surrendered. Seconded by Director Martman. All those in favor? None opposed. The motion is carried. We table that item. So Mr. Robbins will move through our next item and then the bylaws.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. SR3 is a report from Legislative Services Division with regards to alternate area director resignation and appointment for electoral area E. It's for your information only that we are unfortunately had to receive the resignation from the alternate director. I am pleased to inform the board that Zoe Lochner has now been appointed as the alternate director for the area. Just an information piece. There's
Good for
no
information. Is this Zoe Laukner, the musician? No? Well, anyway. Welcome, Zoe. Even though you're not here, maybe you're watching online.
So that moves you to,
This is for Area E?
yes.
I thought you said you don't know if she's a musician, but you do know her. Okay, good. I just heard part of it, and I thought it was like, who is that? All right, moving on, Mr. Robbins, to the bylaws.
Section bylaws, B1, CVRD bylaw number 4482, Mill Springs Sewer Service Amendment bylaw 2023, a motion to be adopted.
Moved by Director Segal, seconded by Director Deck. All those in favor? Any opposed? None opposed, motion carries.
B2, CVRD bylaw number 4518, Sentinel Ridge Sewer System Service Amendment Boundary bylaw 2023, recommendation to be adopted.
Moved by Director Segal, seconded by Director Abbott. All those in favor? Any opposed? None opposed, motion carries.
B3, CVRD bylaw number 4491, Sentinel Ridge Sewer Service Amendment Boundary Extension bylaw 2023, recommendation for adoption.
Moved by Director Segal, seconded by Director Deck. All those in favor? Any opposed? None opposed, motion carries.
B4 is CVRD bylaw number 4555, Lake Couch and Fire Protection Service Amendment Boundary Extension bylaw 2024. The recommendation is to grant that bylaw first, second, and third readings.
Moved by Director Morrison, seconded by Director Toporowski. All those in favor? Any opposed? None opposed, motion carries.
And within this section, the final B5 CVRD bylaw number 4556, Malahat Fire Protection Service Amendment, Boundary Extension Bylaw 2024. The recommendation is to provide first, second, and third readings.
Moved by Director Segal, seconded by Director Abbott. All those in favor? Any opposed? None opposed, motion carries. And we have a bylaw served for electoral area directors only?
Correct. Two parts. That CVRD bylaw 4543, Building Regulation Amendment Bylaw 2024 be granted first, second, and third readings.
Moved by Director Abbott, seconded by Director Deck. All those in favor? Any opposed? None opposed, motion carries.
And finally, that CVRD bylaw 4543, Building Regulation Amendment Bylaw 2024 be adopted.
Moved by Director Nicholson, seconded by Director Abbott. All those in favor? Any opposed? None opposed, motion carries. Takes us to our new business item.
Which is
Want me to hand it to Director Morrison? He can carry it for you?
Sure, I've got it in front of me as well now.
You had so many extra words today, I don't want to stress you out.
Oh,
Director Morrison, you please go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I emailed this to the board. It's was pleasantly surprised that was contacted by Kira Bolin from Municipal Asset Management Program, and I guess as a result of my attendance at FCM last year and my numerous visits to the FCM Asset Management booth and several discussions and interactions with them, they've extended this offer, came to me, but wanted to make sure that it was shared with the board, and I would be interested in attending. This is no cost to the taxpayers of the regional district, and wanted to put it before the board as it is addressed to myself or another member of the board. So with that, I am interested in going and would appreciate the support of the board to endorse my attendance.
Move Director Morrison's attendance.
Seconded by Director Justice. I'm going to start using both titles, Professor Director Justice. Question, Director Nicholson.
My question is this an opportunity for sharing training opportunities on asset management, which I think is a pretty important topic moving forward? And I appreciate Director Morrison bringing this to the table, and I appreciate his work in asset management and gathering information in the past, but I also know that he's very knowledgeable and has been around for a long time, and I wondered if maybe it would be more appropriate for some of the newer members to take advantage of this.
That would be up to the board. The motion on the floor is that Director Morrison attend. If someone else would like to attend perhaps, and could step forward and we could have that discussion. Director Martman.
I was just wondering, perhaps a way forward would also be to consider having a backup alternate in case Director Morrison couldn't attend.
We could also do that, and we could also require that Director Morrison come back and hold an asset management session for the other directors.
Gladly.
Would somebody like to step up as an alternate in such case that Director Morrison cannot attend? Okay. Okay, now we got it. Okay, so now into the middle of the ring, you two. So Director Abbott as alternate, being the new guy. So can we move an amendment that just includes Director Abbott as an alternate? Moved by Director Istash, seconded by Director Martman. We'll call the question on the amendment. All those in favor? Any opposed? None opposed? Back to the motion as amended. Any further discussion? Director Abbott.
Chair, I liked your idea of reporting back so that we all gain on the insights that Director Morrison learns from this. Is that required as an
So I wonder if that could be an agenda item on an ESC agenda upon their return. A director's report and maybe some sharing of the materials and such. I see Director Morrison's got his hand up.
Yeah, I'm thinking just I should recuse myself from this vote. I am going on behalf of the district, but is there not
No, there's no personal benefit. That's the business.
I don't believe it's a trip to Dubai, Director Morrison.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't, that's not our personal, it's not, if they were gonna say we're gonna take you on a 2-week vacation to Jamaica or something, for sure. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? None opposed, motion carries.
Going back to SR2 to lift from the table.
Yes, so do we need a motion to return it?
Yes, lift from the
to-
table, motion.
Moved by Director Istash, seconded by Director Morrison. All those in favor? Any opposed? None opposed? We're back.
And staff recommend that you refer it back to them.
Okay, thank you. So we're looking for that referral motion. Director Martman, seconded by Director Morrison. All those in favor? Any opposed? None opposed? Motion carries. I think that takes us to the end of our open session business, Mr. Robbins.
Question period.
Thank you. Question period. Ms. Kaufman.
Thank you. Susan Kaufman, Satlam. On item CR1, R4, the staff report puts forward that the temporary use permits be applied to all electoral areas. And currently, not all electoral areas opt to have temporary use permits. So will this, I'm just wondering how that will be addressed.
In the future staff report to the Electoral Area Services Committee, those policies will be brought forward for further deliberation by the Electoral Area Service Committee and then forwarded to the board once they've gone through committee. Yeah, I'm not sure the context, so I don't want to step in it. But temporary use permits are a completely normal and most often sort of an interim opportunity and measure for uses that are not presently permitted without having to go through a full rezoning. In my experience, at least municipally, they're open to the same kind of scrutiny and oversight by both the board and the staff as a rezoning, but maybe with not quite the high a bar. I'm not sure what the trepidation is, but if you want to ask me, I can try and assure you. I get the understanding from staff the policy is not written, so it'll come back to the EASC, and perhaps that will illuminate the path forward a little bit better.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, for that. I did, because it was public input, I couldn't pose it in a question, but I did raise the concern that the proposed temporary use permit for RVs, and I would assume that that would include tiny homes, is in contravention to the BC Building Code. And I'm wondering how that will be addressed, or I didn't hear an answer for that.
So I'm not sure of any TUP being proposed for an RV at this time. I don't know, nobody's saying that there is.
I believe it was in the staff report, sir.
Oh, it was suggested as an example.
Yes.
So that's not policy right now. It'll be coming back to the Electoral Area Services Committee and they'll deliberate and discuss it. Whether or not that gets put forward as part of that package will be the work of the committee that would then be forwarded to the board. And at this time, that's not the case. Staff are suggesting perhaps, I need to read the staff report, that's a possibility, but it would be the decision of the committee and then the board.
I'm sure you can appreciate the concern for something, a possibility that's been put forward that is in contravention.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I can also say that in some contexts, there have been small, short-term temporary uses that I'm aware of for RVs on work sites and things like that to allow construction. I'm not sure what will be put forward by staff here, but there are sometimes thoughtful, sensible opportunities for those things. But I know what you're probably concerned about is long-term, multi-year tenancy within RVs and that not being safe. I can only say that Electoral Area Service Committee will do their work and debate it, and staff will bring forward, hopefully, what I would assume will be sensible, thoughtful policies for consideration.
Mr. Chair, the concern that I have, that in the report, it requires systems to be put in for what would be a temporary use permit for sewers, and that negates the temporary, because there is a significant cost to putting in sewer systems. And I see my time is.
No, it's okay. Lots of latitude here, but again, this is all committee work that hasn't happened, so I get the trepidation, but that work will be done at committee with lots of opportunity to give input as that process unfolds.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, may I ask for just a little bit of leniency?
I thought I already gave a little bit, but I'll give you a little bit more.
Okay. It's just a kudos to you, sir, for at the last board meeting, you extended the public input period at the beginning of the meeting when you saw that there was a high degree of interest in the public for not just one item on the agenda, and I just wanted to say as a member of the public, I appreciate that. Thank you.
Well, credit to our board colleagues because they did vote for that. So I appreciate the suggestion, but I can't remember who suggested it to me, but it was one of our board colleagues that said perhaps we extend that. It might have been Director Martman, but that we extend that opportunity. So
I'm sorry, I did not hear that. I wasn't here. I wasn't able to make
Yeah.
it, but I did not hear that on the recording.
okay, thank you. All right. So that takes us to the end of our full and fulsome business today. Mr. Robbins.
Moving to a closed session, recommendation of motion that the meeting be closed to the public in accordance with the Community Charter, Part 4, Division 3, Section 90, subsections, as noted in accordance with each agenda item for that closed session.
Okay, we'll look for the motion to go into closed. Moved by Director Istash, seconded by Director Justice. Just wanted to do that, Istash and Justice. All those in favor? Any opposed? None opposed? We will reconvene in 10 minutes, please.
And if you could go into the closed WebEx, especially for staff that might be joining us for any of those items.